There's a city that sits on two continents at the same time, one half in Europe, one half in Asia. And for over 1,000 years, if you controlled this city, you controlled the world. Most people think Istanbul was important because it was pretty or had nice buildings. That's not even close to the full story. This city was the center of global power for longer than the United States has existed as a country. And the reason why will change how you see geography forever. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're a merchant in the year 1200. You want to sell silk from China to buyers in Italy. You have two choices. You can take a boat around the entire continent of Africa, which takes months and you'll probably die from storms or pirates, or you can go through one single city that connects the two worlds. That city is Istanbul. Back then, it was called Constantinople, but we'll get to that. Here's the part nobody talks about. Istanbul isn't just near the trade routes, it is the trade route. There's a tiny strip of water called the Bosphorus. It's only 17 miles long. That's the distance some people jog in a morning. But this little channel of water connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. And that means it connects all of Europe to all of Asia. Every single thing that moved between these continents for 1,000 years had to pass through this spot. To put that in perspective, controlling Istanbul was like owning the only bridge across a river that everyone in the world needs to cross every single day. You can charge tolls, you can decide who gets to pass, you can see every product, every idea, every invention that moves between continents. You become insanely rich and insanely powerful just by sitting there. Now, most people think the Romans built this city. Wrong, it was the Greeks. A guy named Byzas founded it around 657 BC. He picked this exact spot because he understood something brilliant. The Bosphorus has currents that make it almost impossible to attack from the sea. The land side has natural hills that are easy to defend. And the harbor, called the Golden Horn, is shaped perfectly to protect ships from storms. This wasn't luck. This was the greatest location ever chosen for a city. But here's where things get interesting. For hundreds of years, the city was just okay. Important, but not world-changing. Then in the year 330, a Roman emperor named Constantine did something crazy. He moved the entire capital of the Roman Empire from Rome to this city, and he renamed it after himself, Constantinople. Think about what that means. The most powerful empire on Earth just abandoned its 1,000-year-old capital and moved to this spot. Why? Because Constantine saw what was coming. Rome was in the west, but all the wealth, all the trade, all the growth was happening in the east. He knew that whoever controlled the meeting point between east and west would control the future. And he was right. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in 476, Constantinople didn't just survive, it thrived. It became the capital of what we now call the Byzantine Empire. And for the next 1,000 years, it was the richest, most advanced, most powerful city on the planet. Let me give you one example of how dominant this place was. In the year 1200, Constantinople had a population of around 400,000 people. Paris had maybe 25,000. London had about 18,000. This city was 20 times bigger than the major cities of Europe. It had running water, it had street lights, it had hospitals and universities and libraries filled with books that Europe had forgotten existed. The wealth that flowed through this city was absolutely insane. Merchants would arrive with caravans carrying hundreds of camels loaded with goods. Gold coins called bezants were minted here and used across 3 continents. If you were a bezant, you were basically holding a medieval dollar bill that everyone trusted. The Byzantine economy was so stable that their currency didn't lose value for over 700 years. Let that sink in. 700 years of economic stability from one city. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention. The technology that existed in Constantinople was centuries ahead of the rest of Europe. They had a postal system that could deliver messages across the empire in days. They had a spy network that knew what was happening in every major city from Spain to Persia. They had mechanical clocks, automated doors in palaces, and even mechanical singing birds made of gold. This wasn't just a city, it was like visiting the future. Here's the part that blows my mind. Every major religion passed through Istanbul. Christianity spread from here into Europe. Islam expanded around it. Judaism thrived inside it. This wasn't just a city, it was where civilizations met and traded everything, not just goods, ideas, technologies, art, medicine, philosophy. The Hagia Sophia is the perfect example. Built in 537, it was the largest cathedral in the world for almost 1,000 years. The dome was so massive that people thought it was held up by angels. Engineers today still study how Byzantine architects built it without modern tools. When you walked inside, you were supposed to feel like you'd entered heaven itself. That was the point. This building was a message to every visitor. This city has power that touches the divine. Here's where things get really interesting. The walls of Constantinople were so well built that the city was almost impossible to conquer. There were 3 layers of walls on the land side. Some sections were 40 feet thick. The outer wall had towers every 50 yards with soldiers watching day and night. Between the walls were moats that could be flooded. If you somehow got past the first wall, you'd be trapped between walls with arrows raining down on you from both sides. The Byzantines had a secret weapon called Greek fire. It was a liquid that burned on water and couldn't be put out. Nobody knows exactly what it was made of. The recipe was kept so secret that it was lost to history. But when Byzantine ships shot Greek fire at enemy fleets, it was like watching a medieval flamethrower. Enemies were terrified of it. For 800 years, no army could break through. Armies tried over and over. The Arabs besieged the city twice and failed both times. The Bulgarians attacked and got crushed. Even the Vikings sailed down and gave up. The city was considered unconquerable. If you were born in Constantinople, you grew up believing your city would stand forever. But in 1453, everything changed. The Ottoman Empire, led by a 21-year-old sultan named Mehmed II, laid siege to the city. Most people thought it was impossible. The Ottomans had tried before and failed. But Mehmed had something new. Cannons. Massive bronze cannons that could fire stone balls weighing over 1,000 pounds. One of these cannons was so big it took 60 oxen to move it and a crew of 200 men to operate it. When it fired, the sound could be heard 10 miles away. Mehmed also did something brilliant that nobody expected. There was a giant chain stretched across the Golden Horn Harbor to keep Ottoman ships out. So Mehmed built a wooden track over the hills and dragged 70 ships overland around the chain. Imagine waking up one morning and seeing enemy ships inside your protected harbor. Ships that shouldn't be there. Ships that defied physics to arrive. The Byzantines knew then that something had shifted. The Ottomans bombarded the walls day and night for almost 2 months. Imagine living in that city. Every day the ground shakes. Every night you hear explosions. The walls that protected your ancestors for 800 years are crumbling piece by piece. On May 29, 1453, they finally broke through. The Byzantine Empire, which had lasted for over 1,100 years, ended in a single day. Mehmed renamed the city Istanbul, and the Ottomans turned it into the capital of their own empire. Here's what most people miss. Istanbul didn't lose importance after this. It got more important. The Ottomans controlled even more trade routes than the Byzantines. They expanded into Europe, Asia, and Africa. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire covered 3 continents, and every bit of power flowed through Istanbul. Let me give you some numbers that sound fake, but aren't. By the 1600s, Istanbul was the largest city in Europe with over 700,000 people. The Grand Bazaar had more than 4,000 shops under one roof. You could buy anything there. Jewels from India, furs from Russia, coffee from Yemen. tulips that were worth more than houses. The Topkapi Palace had thousands of rooms and housed over 4,000 people. The Ottoman Navy had over 300 ships. This was the center of a superpower. The Ottomans built massive complexes called kuliyes. These weren't just mosques, they were entire social systems. A kuliye would have a mosque, a hospital, a school, a soup kitchen, a library, and public baths all in one place. Poor people could get free food, free healthcare, and free education. This system supported hundreds of thousands of people. The Ottomans understood something important. A powerful city needs to take care of everyone, not just the rich. But there's something even more important that people forget. Istanbul was the last stop on the Silk Road. Every luxury item you can imagine passed through here. Chinese silk, Indian spices, Persian carpets, African gold, European silver. The Ottomans didn't just tax this, they controlled it. They decided what went where and at what price. They had officials whose only job was to inspect goods and set fair prices. This kept the economy stable and made everyone want to trade through Istanbul. This changes everything when you think about world history. The reason Europeans started exploring the oceans in the 1500s wasn't just curiosity. It was because the Ottomans controlled the land routes. Spain and Portugal went searching for sea routes to Asia because they couldn't go through Istanbul anymore without paying massive fees. Christopher Columbus was literally trying to find a way around the Ottomans when he stumbled into America. Think about that for a second. The discovery of the New World happened because one city was so powerful that it forced Europe to find another way around it. That's not just importance, that's reshaping the entire planet. If Istanbul didn't control the trade routes, Columbus might never have sailed west. The entire history of the Americas might be completely different. Istanbul stayed powerful for another 400 years, but slowly, as sea routes opened up, the city's chokehold on trade weakened. The British found ways to India by sailing around Africa. The Spanish brought silver from the Americas. The Dutch built trading posts across Asia. For the first time in over 1,000 years, you didn't need Istanbul to connect east and west. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed after World War I, Istanbul stopped being an imperial capital. The new Turkish government moved the capital to Ankara. Today, Istanbul is the largest city in Turkey with over 15 million people. It's still important, it's still a major economic hub, but it's not the center of the world anymore. Here's why this story matters. For over 1,500 years, one city controlled global trade just because of where it sat on a map. It survived empires, religions, wars, and plagues. It was Christian, then Muslim, then secular. It was Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, and Turkish. But through all of that, geography stayed the same. The Bosphorus didn't move, the continents didn't shift, and that's why Istanbul mattered. If you want to understand why certain places have power, stop looking at culture or politics first. Look at the map. Look at the rivers, the mountains, the coastlines. Geography is destiny, and no city proves that more than Istanbul. Now, here's something interesting to think about. What's the Istanbul of today? What city or location has that same kind of geographical power in our modern world? Some people say it's Singapore, sitting at the tip of Malaysia, where East Asian shipping routes converge. Others say it's Panama, with a canal connecting two oceans. Maybe it's cities that control data centers and internet cables instead of physical trade routes. If this story got you thinking differently about how the world works, do me a favor. Share this video with someone who loves history or geography. Leave a comment and tell me what you think is the most important strategic location in the world today. And if you want more stories about how geography shaped human history, subscribe to Media Point because we're just getting started. There are dozens of other cities, rivers, and mountain passes that changed everything, and I'm going to tell you about them.